What happens when a joke meant to embarrass your husband at a family dinner ends with a lawyer knocking on your door? Can a single cruel comment unravel an entire marriage and force you to face the truth about who's really been taking advantage? The day I was served legal papers, I realized too late that I'd been playing games with someone who knew exactly how to win, without ever raising his voice. The trendy bistro hummed with conversation and clinking silverware as our family gathered around the oversized wooden table. I adjusted my new silk blouse, the one I'd bought with money from our joint account that Harry never questioned, and surveyed the faces around me. My mother Lily sat to my left, already 3 glasses of wine deep and laughing too loudly at everything. Harry's mother Janice perched across from us, her lips pressed into that familiar thin line of disapproval she'd perfected over the years. Harry sat beside me, methodically cutting his salmon into perfect squares, saying nothing as usual. God, he was boring. At 36, my husband had settled into a routine so predictable I could set my watch by it. Work, home, dinner, television, bed. Rinse and repeat, day after day, year after year. So Ianthe, Owen, Harry's older brother, leaned forward with a grin. How are things at the customer service department? Still bossing people around? I laughed, feeling the familiar thrill of being the center of attention. Someone has to keep things running smoothly. Unlike some people, I actually have to deal with difficult personalities all day. Harry's fork paused halfway to his mouth, but he didn't look up. Well, at least you're good at handling difficult people, Janice said, with what might have been a compliment if her tone weren't so sharp. I have plenty of practice, I replied, then felt a wicked impulse rise in my chest. The wine had loosened my tongue, and Harry's silent presence beside me suddenly felt suffocating. I mean, living with Harry has taught me patience. He's not exactly what you'd call exciting company. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Owen shifted in his seat. Lily giggled nervously. Ianthe, Harry said quietly, finally looking at me with those steady brown eyes that used to make me feel safe, but now just made me feel trapped. What? I'm just being honest. I turned to address the whole table, my voice getting louder. Let's face it, Harry's only good for paying bills. I handle everything else, the social calendar, Sophie's school activities, keeping our lives interesting. He just sits there with his spreadsheets and his calculators. The words hung in the air, like smoke from a fire I'd just lit. Owen's mouth fell open slightly. Janice's face went white, then red. Even Lily stopped giggling. That's not, Owen started. Oh, come on. I waved my hand dismissively. We all know it's true. Harry's a good provider, I'll give him that. Very reliable, like a utility company. But let's not pretend he's bringing any passion or excitement to this marriage. Harry set down his fork carefully and reached for his napkin, dabbing at the corners of his mouth with mechanical precision. When he looked at me again, something had shifted in his expression, something cold and calculating that I'd never seen before. You're right, he said simply. I do pay the bills. The quiet way he said it made my stomach twist uncomfortably, but I pushed the feeling away. See, he admits it. Harry knows his role in this family. Ianthe, that's enough, Janice said sharply. Harry works 60 hours a week to provide for you and Sophie. He deserves better than— Oh, please, I interrupted. Don't act like he's some kind of martyr. He chose this life. We both did. I'm just honest about what it is. Harry stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I need some air, he said, his voice carefully controlled. I'll wait in the car. As he walked away, I felt a mixture of triumph and unease. I'd made my point, shown everyone that I wasn't some meek little housewife who worshipped her husband. But the way Harry had looked at me before he left— That was cruel, Ianthe, Owen said quietly. It was honest, I shot back. Maybe if more wives were honest about their marriages, we'd all be happier. Harry's a good man, Janice said, her voice shaking with anger. He loves you and Sophie more than anything. How dare you humiliate him like that in public? I wasn't humiliating him. I was just making conversation. God, you people are so sensitive. But even as I said it, I noticed Harry had left his phone on the table. The screen lit up with a notification, and I caught a glimpse of a message from someone named Private Investigator Services. My blood ran cold. "Excuse me," I said, grabbing the phone quickly. "I need to take this to Harry." I rushed outside, my heart pounding. Harry was leaning against our Honda Civic, staring up at the darkening sky. When he saw me approaching with his phone, he straightened up. "You left this inside," I said, trying to keep my voice casual as I handed it over. "Thank you." He took the phone without looking at the screen, but I caught the way his thumb quickly swiped away the notification. "Harry, about what I said in there. Don't worry about it, Ianthe. You were just being honest, right? That's what you said." There was something in his tone that made me want to take it all back, but my pride wouldn't let me. "You're being too sensitive. It was just dinner conversation." "Just dinner conversation," he repeated slowly, like he was memorizing the phrase. "Got it." We drove home in silence, Sophie chattering from the back seat about her upcoming school play, while the tension between Harry and me filled the car like fog. I kept stealing glances at him, but his face revealed nothing. Just that same calm, methodical expression he wore when balancing our checkbook or filing our taxes. That night, as I lay in bed replaying the evening, I told myself I had nothing to feel guilty about. I'd been honest, maybe brutally honest, but honest nonetheless. Harry was boring. He was only good for paying bills. Everyone knew it, so why did I feel like I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life? 3 weeks after the dinner disaster, I was sitting in the break room at work, picking at a salad and scrolling through my phone when Cole Hartley walked in. At 32, Cole was everything Harry wasn't. Spontaneous, passionate, exciting. His job as a fitness instructor at Fit Zone Gym meant he was always in incredible shape, and when he smiled at me, I felt like a teenager again. "Hey, beautiful," he said, sliding into the chair across from me. "How's your day going?" I glanced around the break room. It was nearly empty, just Margaret from accounting in the corner, buried in her romance novel. "Better now that you're here." Cole reached across the table and brushed his fingers against mine. The simple touch sent electricity up my arm. "I've been thinking about you all morning." "Just this morning?" I teased, feeling more alive than I had in years. "Okay, fine. All week, all month. Happy now?" This was what I'd been missing with Harry. This playful banter, this feeling of being desired, of being seen as more than just a bill-paying partner and co-parent. With Cole, I felt beautiful and exciting and worth pursuing. "I wish we could spend more time together," I said, lowering my voice. Cole's expression grew more serious. "Ianthe, we need to be careful. I don't want to cause problems in your marriage." I almost laughed. "What marriage? Harry and I are basically roommates at this point. We share a house and a daughter, but that's it. There's no passion, no connection. We're like business partners." It wasn't entirely true, but it felt true in the moment. Harry and I had grown apart over the years. He was so focused on work and finances that he barely noticed me anymore. When was the last time he'd complimented my appearance or planned a romantic evening? When was the last time we'd had a real conversation about anything other than Sophie's schedule or the mortgage payment? "Are you sure about that?" Cole asked, his blue eyes searching my face. "I'm sure. Harry's a good father and a reliable provider, but he's not a husband. Not really. He's more like a very efficient household appliance." Cole laughed, but there was uncertainty in his eyes. "I just don't want to be the reason your family falls apart." "You're not breaking anything up," I assured him. "You're just helping me remember what it feels like to be alive." We talked for another 20 minutes, our hands intertwined across the small table. Cole told me about his dreams of opening his own gym someday, about the places he wanted to travel. I told him about my frustrations at work, about feeling trapped in a life that had become too small for me. When my break ended, Cole walked me back to my desk. As we passed through the lobby, I caught sight of a familiar car in the parking lot across the street, a Honda Civic that looked exactly like Harry's. "Is that your husband?" Cole asked, following my gaze. I squinted at the car, but the afternoon sun was reflecting off the windshield, making it impossible to see inside. "I don't think so. Harry's at work. Besides, what would he be doing here?" But unease settled in my stomach like a stone. That evening, when Harry came home from his accounting firm, I studied his face for any sign that he'd been near my office building. He looked the same as always, tired, distracted, focused on the stack of mail he was sorting through. "How was your day?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Fine, busy. The Henderson account is giving us trouble." He didn't look up from the electric bill he was examining. "How was yours?" "The usual. Difficult customers, pointless meetings." That was it. No follow-up questions, no interest in the details of my day. This was exactly what I'd been talking about with Cole. Harry went through the motions of being a husband, but his heart wasn't in it. Later that evening, after Sophie had gone to bed, I found Harry in his home office, working on his laptop. The blue glow of the screen cast shadows across his face, making him look older than his 36 years. "You're working late again," I said from the doorway. "Just finishing up some things." His fingers never stopped moving across the keyboard. "Harry, about what happened at dinner a few weeks ago." Now he looked up, his brown eyes meeting mine. "What about it?" "I think maybe I was a little harsh. I didn't mean to embarrass you in front of everyone." He studied my face for a long moment. "What did you mean to do?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't know. I guess I was just frustrated. Sometimes I feel like we're not really connected anymore, like we're just going through the motions." Harry nodded slowly. "I see. And you think the solution is to humiliate me in public?" "That's not what I was trying to do." "What were you trying to do, Ianthe?" There was something in his voice, a sharpness I wasn't used to, that made me defensive. "I was trying to be honest about our relationship. Maybe if we could actually talk about our problems, instead of pretending everything is fine." "I'm not pretending anything is fine," Harry interrupted. "I'm working. I'm providing for our family. I'm being a father to our daughter. If that's not enough for you, then maybe you should figure out what would be." The conversation felt like it was spiraling away from me. This wasn't how I'd planned for it to go. "Harry, I just want us to be happy." "Are you happy, Ianthe?" The question hung between us like a challenge. Was I happy? With Cole, yes. When I was at work, flirting and feeling desired, yes. But here, in this house, with this man who treated our marriage like a business arrangement. "I don't know," I said honestly. Harry nodded again, like I'd confirmed something he'd already suspected. "Well, when you figure it out, let me know." He turned back to his computer, effectively dismissing me. I stood in the doorway for another moment, waiting for him to say something else, to fight for our marriage, to show some emotion. But he just kept typing, his face illuminated by the cold glow of the screen. I went to bed alone that night, and for the first time in weeks, Harry didn't join me. I heard him moving around downstairs until well past midnight, but when I woke up the next morning, he was already gone for work. On my phone, I had a text from Cole. "Good morning, beautiful. Can't wait to see you today." I smiled and typed back, "Me too." At least someone was excited to see me. The atmosphere in our house had shifted dramatically over the past month. What used to be comfortable silence between Harry and me had become something cold and watchful. He was polite, always polite, but there was a distance in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Even Sophie seemed to sense the change. "Mummy, why doesn't Daddy eat dinner with us anymore?" she asked one evening as I tucked her into bed. I smoothed her dark hair, so much like Harry's. "Daddy's just been working a lot, sweetheart. He's very busy." "Is he mad at us?" The question pierced through me. "No, baby, Daddy's not mad at you. He loves you very much." "What about you? Is he mad at you?" I didn't know how to answer that. Was Harry mad at me? He certainly wasn't acting like the same man I'd married 8 years ago. The Harry I'd fallen in love with had been quiet and steady, yes, but warm, affectionate. This new version of him was like living with a polite stranger. "Everything's fine, Sophie. Don't worry about grown-up stuff, okay?" But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Nothing was fine. The next evening, I came home from work later than usual. I'd stayed to have coffee with Cole at the little cafe near Fitzone, and time had gotten away from us. It was nearly 8 o'clock when I walked through the front door, expecting to find Harry and Sophie finishing dinner without me. Instead, I found Harry sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of papers spread out in front of him. Sophie was nowhere to be seen. "Where's Sophie?" I asked, dropping my purse on the counter. "At my mother's. She's having a sleepover with her cousin Emma." "Since when? I didn't know about any sleepover." Harry looked up from his papers. "I arranged it this afternoon. I thought it would be good for her to spend some time away from the house." There was something ominous in the way he said it. Away from what? The tension. She's 7 years old, Ianthe. She shouldn't have to feel like she's walking on eggshells in her own home. I felt a flash of anger. She's not walking on eggshells. Everything's fine. Is it? Harry gathered up his papers and slipped them into a manila folder. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're barely here anymore. You leave early, you come home late, and when you are here, you're on your phone constantly." "I've been working overtime. The department is understaffed and, no, you haven't." The quiet certainty in his voice stopped me cold. "What?" "I said you haven't been working overtime. I called your office yesterday to see if you wanted me to bring you dinner. Your supervisor said you left at 5:30, same as always." My heart started pounding. She must have been confused. I was probably in a different department or... "Where were you, Ianthe?" The question hung in the air between us. Harry's brown eyes were steady, patient, waiting for an answer. This was the moment where I could come clean, where I could tell him about Cole and try to work through our problems together. Instead, I went on the attack. "I can't believe you're checking up on me like some kind of stalker. What's next, Harry? Are you going to start following me around, going through my phone?" "I wasn't checking up on you. I was trying to be thoughtful. I thought my wife might be hungry after a long day at work." "Don't turn this around on me. You called my office behind my back. That's not being thoughtful, that's being controlling." Harry stood up slowly, the folder still in his hands. "Controlling? I've never controlled anything you've done, Ianthe. I've never questioned where you go or who you're with. I've never looked at your phone or your computer. I've trusted you completely. And now you don't. Now I don't know what to think." The honesty in his voice was more devastating than anger would have been. For a moment, I felt the weight of what I was doing to him, to us, to our family. But then I thought about Cole's smile, about the way he made me feel alive and desired, and the guilt hardened into resentment. "Maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't need to find fulfillment elsewhere." The words were out before I could stop them. Harry's face went very still. "What kind of fulfillment are we talking about, Ianthe?" I could have backtracked then. I could have said I meant work, or friends, or hobbies. Instead, I let the silence stretch between us, let him draw his own conclusions. "I see," Harry said finally. "Do you? Because I don't think you've really seen me in years. I'm 34 years old, Harry. I'm not ready to just fade into the background of my own life. And you think having an affair is the solution?" There it was. The word I'd been dancing around for weeks. Affair. It sounded so sordid when he said it out loud, but that wasn't what this was. What Cole and I had was different. It was about connection, about feeling valued and appreciated. "I think," I said carefully, "that maybe we both need to figure out what we want from this marriage." Harry nodded, like I'd confirmed something he'd already suspected. "You're right, we do." He walked past me toward the stairs, then stopped and turned back. "Just so we're clear, Ianthe, I know exactly what I want from this marriage. The question is whether you want the same thing. And what's that? Honesty, loyalty, partnership, the things we promised each other 8 years ago. People change, Harry. Marriages evolve. Yes, they do, but they don't survive betrayal. He went upstairs, leaving me alone in the kitchen. A few minutes later, I heard him moving around in our bedroom, then the sound of footsteps going down the hall to the guest room. That night, I lay in our king-sized bed alone, staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out how everything had gotten so complicated. 6 months ago, my life had been predictable but stable. Now it felt like I was standing on shifting sand, never sure which step might send everything crashing down around me. My phone buzzed with a text from Cole. "Sweet dreams, beautiful. Can't wait to hold you tomorrow." I typed back, "Me too," but for the first time, the words felt hollow. Down the hall, I could hear Harry moving around in the guest room, and I wondered what he was thinking. Was he planning to leave me? Was he talking to a lawyer? The thought should have scared me, but instead I felt something that might have been relief. Maybe it would be easier if Harry just made the decision for both of us. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in my car in the FitZone parking lot, waiting for Cole to finish his last training session of the day. The October air was crisp, and I'd worn the blue dress that Cole said brought out my eyes. I felt nervous and excited, like a teenager sneaking out to meet her boyfriend. My phone rang, and Evelyn's name flashed on the screen. My best friend had been my biggest supporter through all of this, constantly reminding me that I deserved to be happy. "Hey, Ev," I answered. "Hey, girl, how are things going with your sexy trainer?" I glanced around the parking lot to make sure no one could overhear. "Good, really good. We're meeting for dinner tonight." "That's amazing. You sound so much happier lately. More like your old self." I feel like my old self. I'd forgotten what it was like to feel desired, you know? Harry and I have been like roommates for so long. Speaking of Harry, Evelyn's tone grew more serious. My sister mentioned she saw him at that new coffee shop downtown yesterday. He was with some woman in a business suit. They looked pretty cozy. My stomach dropped. What kind of cozy? I don't know. Sarah said they were sitting close together, going through some papers. The woman had her hand on his arm at one point. I tried to process this information. Harry was having meetings with strange women. Did she recognize her? No, but she said the woman looked professional, like a lawyer or something. A lawyer. My blood ran cold as I remembered the notification I'd seen on Harry's phone weeks ago. Private investigator services. What if he was actually building a case against me? "Ianthe, you still there?" "Yeah, I'm here. I'm sure it was just work-related. Harry's always meeting with clients." "Maybe, but you might want to be extra careful, you know, if Harry's getting suspicious." The call ended just as Cole emerged from the gym, his gym bag slung over his shoulder and that familiar smile lighting up his face. But as he walked toward my car, I noticed something different in his expression. He looked nervous, almost guilty. "Hey, beautiful," he said, sliding into the passenger seat, but he didn't lean over to kiss me like he usually did. "Everything okay?" I asked. Cole ran his hand through his blonde hair, a gesture I'd learned meant he was stressed. "Ianthe, we need to talk." My heart sank. That doesn't sound good. "Look, I care about you. I really do. But this whole situation is getting complicated." "What do you mean?" "I mean, you're married. You have a kid. And lately, I feel like people are starting to notice us together." I thought about Harry's possible meeting with a lawyer, about Evelyn's warning to be careful. What kind of people? Other gym members, some of my co-workers. Yesterday, my boss asked me if I was dating a married woman. Someone must have seen us together and talked. The walls were closing in around us, but instead of feeling scared, I felt angry. Why did everything have to be so complicated? Why couldn't I just be happy? "So what are you saying?" I asked. Cole shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I'm saying maybe we should cool things off for a while. Let the gossip die down." "Cool things off?" "Cole, What we have is special. Are you really going to let a few busybodies ruin that? It's not just the gossip, Ianthe. I've been thinking about your husband, your daughter. What happens if this all comes out? What happens to your family? I wanted to scream. Everyone was so concerned about Harry and Sophie. But what about me? What about what I needed? My family is already broken, I said. Harry and I are basically strangers living in the same house. Sophie barely sees her father because he's always working. I'm not destroying anything that wasn't already destroyed. Cole looked out the windshield, avoiding my eyes. Maybe you should try to fix things with your husband before you give up completely. Fix things? Cole, you don't understand. Harry doesn't see me as a woman anymore. I'm just the person who manages his household and raises his child. You make me feel alive again. You make me feel beautiful and wanted. You are beautiful and wanted, but maybe what? Maybe I should go back to being invisible. Maybe I should just accept that this is all I get in life. Cole finally looked at me, and I saw pity in his blue eyes. That was worse than rejection. I just think you need to figure out what you really want, Ianthe. And I don't think it's me. Before I could respond, he was getting out of the car. I'm sorry, he said through the open door. I really am. I sat there for several minutes after he left, feeling humiliated and abandoned. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. How are things going with you and Harry? I hope you're working on your marriage, dear. A good man is hard to find. Even my own mother was taking Harry's side. I started the car and pulled out of the parking lot, my vision blurred with angry tears. As I turned onto the main road, I caught sight of a familiar Honda Civic parked across the street. The same car I'd thought I'd seen outside my office building. This time, I could see clearly through the windshield. Harry was sitting behind the wheel, and there was a small device mounted on his dashboard, a dash cam. Our eyes met across the distance, and for a moment neither of us moved. Then Harry raised his hand in a small, almost polite wave, like we were neighbors passing on the street. I drove home with my heart pounding, trying to figure out how long he'd been following me, how much he'd seen. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I'd convinced myself that it didn't matter. So, what if Harry knew about Cole? Maybe it was time everything came out in the open. Harry's car pulled in behind mine a few minutes later. He got out calmly, locked the doors, and walked past me toward the house without saying a word. Harry, I called after him. He stopped but didn't turn around. Yes? We need to talk. Do we? You were following me. Now he did turn around, and his face was completely impassive. I was driving home from work, same as you. Your work isn't anywhere near Fit Zone. No, it's not. The admission hung between us. He wasn't even trying to deny it. How long have you been spying on me? I'm not spying on you, Ianthe. I'm protecting myself. From what? From whatever's coming next. He went inside, leaving me standing in the driveway with the October wind cutting through my blue dress. For the first time since this whole thing started, I felt truly afraid. Not of Harry. He'd never hurt me physically, but of what he might be planning, what evidence he might be gathering, what quiet, methodical revenge he might be preparing while I'd been focused on Cole and my own happiness. I followed him into the house, but Harry had already disappeared into his office. Through the closed door, I could hear him on the phone with someone, his voice too low for me to make out the words. That night, he slept in the guest room again, and I lay awake until dawn, wondering what tomorrow would bring. The next few weeks passed in a strange, tense quiet. Harry continued to be polite and functional. He made coffee in the mornings, helped Sophie with her homework, paid the bills as always. But there was a wall between us now, invisible but impenetrable. He spoke to me only when necessary, and never when Sophie was around. I tried to reach out to Cole several times, but he'd made it clear that whatever we'd had was over. My texts went unanswered, and when I drove by Fit Zone, I saw him through the windows, training other clients, laughing and smiling like nothing had happened between us. The isolation was suffocating, Even Evelyn had grown distant after I'd told her about Cole ending things. "Maybe it's for the best," she'd said during our last phone conversation. "Maybe this is your chance to work on your marriage." "I thought you were on my side," I'd snapped. "I am on your side, Ianthe. That's why I'm telling you to think carefully about what you're doing. You have a good life with Harry. Don't throw it away for something that was never going to last." Now, sitting in our living room on a Saturday morning, I watched Harry help Sophie build an elaborate Lego castle while I scrolled through social media on my phone. Everyone else's life looked so perfect in their carefully curated posts. Happy families, romantic date nights, exciting vacations. I snapped a photo of Harry and Sophie with the castle and posted it to Facebook with the caption, "Family time is the best time. So grateful for these two." Within minutes, likes and comments started pouring in from friends and relatives, all telling me how lucky I was, how sweet Harry was with Sophie, how perfect our family looked. If only they knew the truth. "Mummy, do you want to help us?" Sophie asked, looking up at me with Harry's dark eyes. "Maybe later, sweetie. Mommy has some things to do." Harry glanced at me over Sophie's head, and I saw something that might have been sadness cross his face. But then it was gone, replaced by that careful blankness he'd perfected. My phone rang, and my mother's name appeared on the screen. I stepped into the kitchen to answer. "Hi, Mom." "Ianthe, honey, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me." My stomach clenched. "What is it?" "Your cousin Janet saw you at that gym downtown a few weeks ago. She said you were with a man who definitely wasn't Harry. They looked close." I closed my eyes, leaning against the kitchen counter. "Mum, I can explain. Are you having an affair?" The blunt question hit me like a slap. "It's not that simple. It's a yes or no question, Ianthe." "Yes," I whispered, "but it's over now. It didn't mean anything." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When my mother spoke again, her voice was cold. "How could you do this to Harry? To Sophie? That man has been nothing but good to you." "You don't understand what our marriage is like, Mom. Harry and I have been growing apart for years. We're like strangers." "So you talk to him about it. You go to counseling. You don't sneak around behind his back like some kind of—" I can't even say it. Tears stung my eyes. "I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd support me." "Support you in destroying your family? Absolutely not. Harry is a good man, Ianthe. He works hard, he loves you and Sophie. He's never given you any reason to doubt him. And this is how you repay him." "He doesn't love me, Mom, not really. I'm just convenient for him." "That's not true, and you know it. I've seen the way that man looks at you. Or at least the way he used to look at you." The past tense hit me harder than I expected. Used to look at me. When was the last time Harry had looked at me with anything other than polite indifference? "I have to go," I said. "Ianthe, you need to fix this. Whatever it takes, you need to make this right with Harry before it's too late." But as I hung up the phone, I wondered if it was already too late. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. Through the living room window, I could see a woman in a business suit standing on our front porch, holding a large manila envelope. Harry answered the door, and I watched from the kitchen as they had a brief, quiet conversation. The woman handed him the envelope, he signed something on her clipboard, and then she was gone. Harry closed the door and stood in the foyer for a moment, looking down at the envelope in his hands. Then he walked into the living room where Sophie was still playing with her Legos. "Sophie, sweetheart, why don't you go upstairs and get ready? Grandma Janice is coming to pick you up for your sleepover." "Already? But we're not finished with the castle." "We'll finish it tomorrow, I promise." Something in his tone made Sophie look up at him more carefully. "Daddy, are you okay?" Harry knelt down beside her, his face softening. "I'm fine, baby girl. I just need to talk to Mommy about some grown-up things. Go get your overnight bag, okay?" After Sophie went upstairs, Harry turned to me. His face was calm, but there was something final in his expression that made my knees weak. "What's in the envelope?" I asked, though I already knew. Legal papers, separation agreement, custody arrangement, division of assets. He spoke matter-of-factly, like he was reading from a grocery list. Harry, we can work this out. We don't need lawyers. Yes, we do. He opened the envelope and pulled out a thick stack of documents. I've been documenting everything for the past 2 months, Ianthe. The affair, the lies, the times you've left Sophie with me while you were with him. I have photos, timestamps, witness statements. My legs gave out, and I sank onto the couch. You hired a private investigator. I did, and I installed a dash cam in my car, and I had our computer forensically analysed. He sat down across from me, the papers spread between us like a barrier. I know about every text message, every phone call, every meeting with Cole Hartley. The sound of his name in Harry's voice made me flinch. Harry, please. It's over between Cole and me. It didn't mean anything. It meant everything, Ianthe. It meant that our marriage vows meant nothing to you. It meant that our family meant nothing to you. That's not true, isn't it? You humiliated me in public. You lied to my face repeatedly. You put our daughter in the middle of your deception. What part of that says our family matters to you? Sophie's footsteps thundered down the stairs, her overnight bag bouncing behind her. I'm ready, Daddy. Harry's expression immediately softened as he turned to our daughter. Perfect timing. Grandma should be here any minute. As if on cue, Janice's car pulled into the driveway. Harry walked Sophie to the door, kissing the top of her head and whispering something that made her giggle. I watched from the couch, frozen in place, as my daughter left for what might be the last normal night of her childhood. When Harry came back inside, his face was serious again. I'm filing for legal separation on Monday. I'm asking for primary custody of Sophie, with supervised visitation for you, until we can establish that you're capable of putting her needs first. Supervised visitation? Harry, you can't be serious. She's my daughter. She's our daughter, and she deserves better than what you've been giving her these past few months. I stared at the papers scattered across our coffee table, trying to process what was happening. This is all because of one mistake, because I had a brief relationship with someone else. Harry looked at me like I was a stranger. One mistake? Ianthe, you've been lying to me for months. You've been lying to our daughter. You've been lying to yourself. People make mistakes in marriages, Harry. That doesn't mean you throw everything away. You're right. People make mistakes. But you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. Over and over again, you chose to betray our family. And now I'm making a choice too. He stood up, gathering the papers. You have 72 hours to review the separation agreement and get back to me with any concerns. After that, we proceed as outlined. And if I refuse to sign? Then we go to court and everything becomes public record. Your affair, your lies, your neglect of Sophie. Is that really what you want? I thought about my job, my reputation, my family's reaction when all of this came out. You're blackmailing me. I'm protecting my daughter and myself. There's a difference. Harry walked toward the stairs, then stopped and turned back to me one last time. For what it's worth, Ianthe, I really did love you. I would have done anything to make our marriage work, but you never gave me the chance. As his footsteps faded up the stairs, I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by the remnants of the life I'd systematically destroyed. The Lego castle Sophie and Harry had been building lay half-finished on the floor, and I realized it was a perfect metaphor for our family. Beautiful, carefully constructed, and now completely in ruins.